Now, Mike Adams broke the story and is here to tell us why raw milk is such a threat. Mike, thanks for being here. So why is raw milk such a threat that a multi-agency raid was needed, not just this time, but several times?
Well, clearly raw milk is a threat to the conventional dairy industry, which doesn't want to see raw milk exist at all. Now, the FDA believes that its job is to destroy the raw milk industry, and we actually have evidence now that the FDA is conducting a secret war against raw dairy farmers across the country in Wisconsin and California. And it's doing it because it wants to have the power to keep people in their place. It doesn't want people to have the freedom to engage in their own food production and food sharing throughout the community without FDA approval.
So you're telling me that these small farms where they're just selling to each other in co-ops that have agreed to it, not even at markets, are really a threat for the power of the industrial milk industry?
Yes, because the popularity of raw milk and farmers markets and local food producers is spreading like wildfire. And that's one of the reasons there's such tremendous outrage across the board about this story and about this raid that saw the U.S. government actually pouring milk down the drain, destroying food right in front of people. Many of the people at that protest, part of which you just showed there on your film, they are on the record saying that in their opinion, this is an example of government terrorism against the American people.
And I hear what you're saying about the growing trend of raw milk. I don't know what you'd have to do in order to get me to drink it. It doesn't appeal to me, but that's not to say that it doesn't appeal to a lot of people, but that's not really the point. Who decided that the government should decide who gets to put what food in their body?
You're exactly right. I don't drink milk either. I've chosen not to consume dairy, but I support the rights of others to consume whatever types of foods that they wish to consume. That's the basis of a free society. But what the U.S. government is doing today, it looks a lot more like North Korea than the land of the free. And that's what's disturbing many people and causing such outrage across the board.
But who decided that it was the government's role to do that?
Well, interestingly, this is part of the expansion based on the Food Modernization Safety Act, which was just passed into law last December. And many people thought that was about protecting the food and making it safer. Well, it turns out that the FDA's new powers are targeting raw dairy, farmers, local food producers, and it has nothing to do with safety, everything to do with protecting certain corporate interests.
Who lobbied for that bill? Were there corporate interests lobbying for that bill?
Big time, yeah. A lot of corporate interests, including the Dairy Corporation, including the major food producers. And a lot of people were hoodwinked into thinking that that was going to be a good bill. And it turns out it's just another dangerous expansion of big government that's being used against the freedoms of the people.
So where are the people? Why aren't they rising up and protesting in the streets and lobbying to have raw milk being sold?
Well, there is a revolt happening online. It's starting to spread. Old media, traditional media, has refused to cover this story. So many people don't even know this is happening yet, but they will. As alternative media and institutions like yours continue to cover this, people will find out, and there will be more rallies and more protests against this kind of overreaching government power against freedom.
And you see overreaching, what you call overreaching, for something like raw milk. But why is it that, just to talk more philosophically, why are we allowed to own and buy knives, which can kill people, but you can't sell and, I guess, then drink raw milk?
Well, one of the basic tenets of freedom is that individuals have the rights to enter into private contracts with other individuals. For example, I might contract with my neighbor to buy some raw milk or raw eggs or raw meat. And the FDA is saying that you can't do that. So they are attacking one of the most fundamental tenets of a free society. And now people are starting to see that all of this extra power is being used against them, not to protect them. And that's where the outrage is coming from. And
you say that that you have proof that the FDA has launched a war on the raw milk industry. And I know that, you know, as we're talking about a recall for some meat that could make people sick, raw milk has made, you know, it's given a few people diarrhea. That's not pleasant. It's not fun. But what resources and why so many has the FDA put towards targeting raw milk when it's not been shown to be that big of a safety risk?
Well, just to comment on something you said there, pasteurized, homogenized milk is demonstrably very dangerous to human health when consumed over the long term because it's artificially modified. So it contributes to atherosclerosis or hardening of the arteries. Raw milk is no more dangerous than, say, eating fresh fish or fresh meat, all of which has very small risks, but definitely very real risks. We've got to stop this nanny state attitude where the government tells you everything that you can and can't do. Again, the FDA approved warnings on fish about mercury. Why can't they just say, you take a small risk when you drink raw milk, go ahead and buy it knowing what you're getting into?
And the answer to that, I think that we'll have to see. But it certainly is interesting that you can't, buy raw milk when you're aware that you're buying raw milk, but yet it's perfectly fine to buy GMO products when you're not even aware that they're in the food that you're eating. That was Mike Adams, the health ranger, who broke this story.